pass it over to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And apologies for that little delay. We had I guess I'll share a little bit there, might as well, right? We had a 7-digit accounting error that was really messing with our financials. Our fiscal year ends at the end of May. So we had to wrap that up pretty quick. So I had to take a quick drive down to our corporate office, figure that out. But I'm here. I didn't get pulled over by any police on the way back, surprisingly. And I'm ready to talk Operto and what Mountain Creek did with Operto. So super excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. And as was already mentioned, I hope to keep this super informal. If people have questions as we go along, do the things you can do within Zoom. And I'm happy to jump into those as we go along, but we will also have some Q&A at the end as this agenda lays out. So I won't read off this slide. This is what we're going to talk about. But again, feel free to interrupt me. Ask me those hard questions. I didn't say I liked hard questions. I said I liked questions, but I guess I'm in for the hard ones now too. So let's do this. So Mountain Creek Resort, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit here just to explain the structure of Mountain Creek Resort. So Mountain Creek is owned by a parent company called Snow Partners. Snow Partners has been involved in the ski industry in North America and abroad for going on about 15 years now. And Mountain Creek is just one of the resorts that Snow Partners owns. So we also are happy to own the only indoor snow dome in North America, which is Big Snow over in the American Dream Mall in the Meadowlands of New Jersey. And then the other side of our business is not on the resort side, but on the support side. So we actually have a technology company where we design software for ski areas and a few other companies, including consulting company, a nonprofit, all the stuff typical corporations have. But I think it's important to note that we have both operating resorts and support businesses. So it's pretty funny to be, in a conference like this, since our company sells its own software. And I could say with certainty that this is Operto, and our lodging software is the only software we use that's not within our own suite. So I think that says something. But anyway, zooming back into Mountain Creek a little bit, we'll get into some of the other stuff later, but we're a 4-season resort. We're 47 miles from New York City. So the New York DMA has about 20 million people in it. So we're definitely not starved for guests. The Appalachian only consists of 177 units. I say only because a busy day at the ski resort, we could see over 10,000 visits. So the majority of our guests that come out to our resort are coming for the day. Our advantage is proximity to population. But obviously, if you live in New York City and you want a vacation that's close to home, we're definitely a good spot for that. Hence the Slopeside Hotel. We have units ranging from studio to 2-bedroom, average annual occupancy of about 40%, and mainly event and activity driven stays. So what I'm trying to say there is people come to the ski area, they come to our bike park, they come to our water park, and kind of staying is just something they do to be able to enjoy those activities. We also host weddings and other events that also utilize the building. But for the most part, lodging overall at Mountain Creek really isn't the biggest part of our business. We do about 40 million a year top line revenue, and lodging represents somewhere between 2 to 3 million. Next slide. How did I get here? This is my favorite thing to talk about myself. We were joking before this that everyone loves talking about themselves, but my journey here, graduated high school. I had all the plans in the world to become a meteorologist. So I started going to school for that, and I got a job at the local ski resort while I was doing that. Just a frontline position. I immediately switched majors to finance from meteorology because there was just too much physics involved in that. And, I really just kept working. So I worked all through college, trying to keep those student loans down. Once I graduated college, all my friends who study finance decided to put on the suits and go into New York City, take those jobs at Wall Street at the big firms. I decided to stay at Mountain Creek. So I was offered a full-time year-round job at that point. And I worked in virtually every department we have. I'm a ski patroller. I know how to operate one of the big snowcats, which is probably the funnest thing you could do at a ski area. But really my career took me through the path of finance, sales, and marketing. And through that journey, I was always kind of hitting the lodging division. So at one point in time, part of the scope of my role involved revenue management for the resort, which meant I was setting the price for a ski lift ticket, a bike park ticket, but also setting the price for our lodging property, playing around with all the fun metrics there are, working with the OTAs. At the time, we were using very antiquated technology, so it wasn't as easy as, setting a rate and having it go across all the OTAs. I was basically managing through all these portals, doing all that fun stuff. I do not miss that part of the business, but it was definitely eye-opening to see how much impact revenue management could have on lodging. Fast forward a few years, I was director of sales and marketing at the resort, and we had a vacancy in our lodging division. So I actually took that role on. So I was a director of lodging along with director of marketing. Eventually backfilled that because doing both of those jobs became quite a lot of work and not a lot of social time for Evan. So, and then a couple of years later, I was promoted to general manager of the property, where I now oversee all divisions. So lodging, the ski resort, the bike park, weddings, banquets, you name it. I oversee it. So that was kind of my path to get here. I've been involved with lodging kind of all throughout my 17 years at Mountain Creek. Like I said, currently I'm the GM of the resort. I also serve as the vice president of the homeowners association within the building. And then I'm also the president of the master association that oversees the resort and all the sub associations. So I'm kind of really knee deep in everything that goes on within the building. And I see it from a lot of angles, right? Not just the lodging side, but from the ownership side and the property management side. So that is how I got here. The irony there is I went to school for meteorology initially, and now I work in a completely weather-driven business, right? If it rains, the ski area closes. So I guess I couldn't quite get away from the weather. So our challenges, like I shared earlier, our company owns a technology company. So, technology is something that's not unfamiliar to us. I kind of work on the same side of the business that the guys and gals at Operto do, oftentimes, since it's part of our parent company. But the way we looked at our challenge in lodging was our software company was not prepared to build a PMS and all the unique things that lodging has to offer. We try to stay hyper-focused on what ski operations look like, or water park operations, or really any entertainment facility. But our company was founded originally by some Six Sigma experts, people who are super hyper focused on process efficiency. Most of us on the executive team have some form of belt, either a black belt or a green belt in Six Sigma. So when we realized we were having a technology problem within our lodging division, what we did is we sat down and performed what's called the Kaizen, which is really just an exercise focused on figuring out what could be the best experience for our guests. And, normally what a typical company would do would, get a bunch of management in a room, sit down for a couple of days and say, this is how things work today. How can we get them to be slightly better so we can improve the way things work? And, basically what Six Sigma science says is, when you do that, you could definitely make improvement. It's usually 5 or 10%, but you leave a lot on the table. It's much better to approach these situations from what is the ideal world. So if we were to throw all technology, all known constraints that we know out and start from scratch, what could we do? And those conversations get pretty wacky. When we do them for the resort, we're often talking about, restaurants, and we say, well, what if drones delivered food? I think that actually happens now in some places, but you start to throw out some crazy ideas, and then you layer on the operating realities of maybe we can't do this, maybe we can't have drones flying inside, all those things. But once you get to your final landing spot, you generally have much significant more improvement. So somewhere around 20 to 40% improvement versus the 5 to 10 you'd get from starting from where you're at and trying to build off of it. So that's exactly what we did as we were exploring our technology options. We sat in a room for 2 days, conference room. We were throwing out all sorts of crazy ideas. And the funny thing is, and I probably sound like I'm selling the software, which I'm not. A lot of this stuff we came out of that session with, Operto does. So that doesn't always happen. We've looked at this with payroll software and had a lot of struggles. But luckily for us within, the PMS and lodging world, Operto checked a lot of the boxes that we were looking for. almost to a T. I mean, one of the things we had in that session was, imagine if a housekeeper could go into a room and just take pictures to confirm that it's clean instead of, sending supervisors all around the building. Turns out that exists. So there was a lot of wins there for us right away. And really, Operto was the only solution we could find that could do all those things that we were looking to do. And we looked at a lot of different softwares. So I'm not going to read off this slide, but I think it's pretty obvious what our challenges were, and then enter Operto. So right off the bat, we started using Operto Guest. That was actually what turned us on to Operto in the first place. We did not want to use an app of any sort. Just thinking about our business, there's a lot of stays we have that are one and done. So people will come here for a wedding. They'll never come here again. And we really didn't want those folks having to download an application of any kind. We know from our other business, the second people have to download an app, it becomes this huge effort that a lot of folks aren't willing to do. But with Operto Guest, they're simply clicking a link and going to a web browser. Everyone can do that now. Everyone has a smartphone. So that was kind of our entry into Operto. But then, as I discussed slightly earlier, Operto Teams with housekeeping, I call it the housekeeping module. They call it Operto Teams. The communication and the way we clean our rooms completely changed with that module. Super happy to have it. It's just, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you on this call know what that looks like and how that works, but we were moving from a very antiquated system where our process was basically using notepads and pens. So big change there. And then Operto Tech. This might have made the process the most easy for me. Before we did that whole efficiency exercise, one of the things I started looking at right away was door locks. And that led me down a road of finding a lock I liked, but then not finding a software that worked with it. I found some PMS solutions I liked. They wouldn't really tell me what locks worked with them very well. But the second I got on the phone with the team over at Operto, they made it really easy to match the hardware of the locks with their software. That kind of became a thing that was taken off my plate that I didn't have to worry about. And I could say to this day, obviously we're still using Operto. We haven't had really any issues with our locks. And I think that's a big credit to their team for connecting those solutions together, not having someone who doesn't do this for a living make those decisions. Implementation process. So one of the options we were given in implementation was to have somebody from the Operto team come down to assist us with all of this. And that was probably the best money I spent in the past 5 years running this resort. Very nice gentleman came down. Actually, we went mountain biking together at one point. He was a mountain biker and we have a downhill bike park. So that was fun. But he answered every question we have. And I can honestly say when he left this property after 2 days, everything was working. There was nothing else to worry about. Everything was connected. Everything was working. I've been through many software transitions and integrations in my time, and I'd say that's pretty rare from what I've seen. So super appreciative for that service. And like I said, best money we spent. Patient and supportive team at Operto. I probably reached out to them more than they wanted me to. I'd like to think I was pretty kind and gracious in my outreach, but they were always there. They answered their phones. They got on Zoom calls with me whenever I needed to. And I don't know if this is appropriate to share, but there was a point in this transition where we actually went with a different software prior to doing the whole exercise and everything. And I couldn't get those people on the phone if I tried. I could submit tickets that didn't get responded to all day. I won't say the name of that other provider, but yeah, we had signed a contract with them and immediately canceled. I think there might have been some legal action against them to get some of our money back too for promises made that weren't delivered. But anyway, definitely not the experience with Operto or the PMS provider we wound up going with. And anyone on this call, I'm sure at some point contact information could be exchanged. I'm sure the Operto team can make that happen. And I'm happy to share a little bit more detail on that if there's people looking to make the same decisions we were and kind of running into some of those roadblocks. Happy to share what I learned because I think it was super valuable. The results, numbers, this is what people always want to see. So, I think I covered most of how we're a pretty tech first company. And it kind of brought us to that new level of being fully automated, because up until this point, our lodging division didn't really match the experience you would see elsewhere at the resort. And I guess taking a quick step back, what I mean by that is we had done this process throughout every piece of the ski operation prior to turning our focus to lodging. So one of the big things we focused on was the relationship of things and how that works. So good example would be relationship of scheduling. So we have over 900 employees at the resort. We call them team members, but I'll use employees for the purposes of this. And we had been going through this weird thing where we would, they would submit their availability, then we'd have an admin create a schedule. Then they would tell us, well, actually, I can't work that day. And we were doing this times 900 people. And it really became cumbersome for our team, right? We have all these admins working on it, and it really wasn't good for anyone. It wasn't good for our business. It wasn't good for the team that was working for us. So in that scenario, instead of having everyone work through this scheduling software, we basically kind of flipped the script and we looked at it kind of like college kids choosing classes. So instead of them submitting stuff to us and us trying to figure out their schedule, we just release tens of thousands of shifts at the start of each season, and the team members can go and grab those shifts kind of off a job board, much like, again, like a college where you're picking classes. And, the software we're using for that allows you to set up, different parameters. It prevents people from grabbing more than 40 hours because, labor laws here, that creates some issues for us. Different ages too. There's different rules based on different ages. So we're able to set all that up. And really the same, we thought, should apply to our lodging division, where currently it was a very, I don't want to say antiquated because it still works in a lot of places. But for what we do, we have people reserving rooms, having to go to a front desk to check in, sometimes waiting in a line, getting their credentials, getting the key card, getting a bunch of paper we would give them that just gets thrown out, and then going to their room. And we were looking at that situation and saying, why is there even a front desk, and why are we getting involved in this when we have all their information and we could just provide them with a code to get into the room. So that was, I guess I keep going backwards in time, but that was one of the key drivers of us actually doing this. Was we wanted the lodging operation to match kind of the efficiencies we found elsewhere within the resort. And I'd say we did that. And we saw a lot of the same results we saw elsewhere. So we saved a bunch of money, not only on labor and overhead, but on things like printing. Like I mentioned, being in the ski industry, outdoor recreation, sustainability is pretty important. So the more we can reduce paper, it's always a win for us. And then on the housekeeping side, with the software integration, we were certainly able to save a lot of time and improve quality of our housekeeping, which, that's the business we're in, right? The rooms have to be clean. That's going to be the number one source of bad reviews, is how clean was the room. And we think the software not only sped us up, but also improved that quality. I think there might be one more slide of stats and results. There we go. Cool. So I might have touched on some of this already, but eliminated the front desk. A big question we got at the time when we did that was, is that going to get rid of some of the hospitality touch points that you might have when you do a front desk? And I would say that's a completely false statement. A lot of the functions at a traditional front desk are so mechanical, asking for things that people could have otherwise provided up front, creating key cards, saying things that could be communicated through other channels. And really what we've done is we've transitioned from having a front desk to having folks that are kind of more in a concierge role, where instead of helping you with basic mechanics of checking in, they're actually helping you with questions you actually have and helping you with your stay. So that was, again, another big win for us. Reviews, I shared already. We did see an uptick in those. We track those pretty religiously. Our senior team does on a weekly basis. And immediately when we implemented the software, we saw our review rating go up. We did see a few of those guests who almost refused to use technology. We've seen that at our ski area as well. Those guests we've helped through. I think a lot of people would anticipate that there'd be more of that than there actually is, but everyone has a phone these days, so most people could figure that out. attractive to prospective owners in the building. So like I mentioned off the top, we are a condo hotel, which means owners in the building can choose whether to work with the resort in our rental program, or they can go kind of rogue on Airbnb or do what they need to do on their own. And, this technology certainly helped prove to them we know what we're doing. Our old system was very clunky, didn't provide much confidence in the integrity of our data. But now we could share really cool things with people. We could give them, codes for when they stay. Really everything is just streamlined, and it appears more professional, which perception is certainly reality when it comes to that. And then probably most importantly, with all these changes, we were able to increase our ADR 22% year over year. I wasn't expecting that change. And obviously there was more than just the software that helped us do that. A lot of marketing went into that, but being able to streamline the technology side of things gives you more time to focus on those parts of the business, right? We only have so many people working and almost only so much time to do things. So the more time you're focused on things that could actually drive the business, we found, the better for all of these 8 reasons I just kind of hit the wave tops on. Well, that went quick, and that's because nobody asked questions, or maybe they did and they just haven't come to me yet.
They have, and
Okay.
plenty are going to come to you. Thank you, Evan. Really appreciate it. Didn't expect you to actually plug Operto that much. We always appreciate it. Again, every use case is different, but yeah, it's just been wonderful on our end working with you. Call us anytime. You know the deal.
I want to clarify. I wasn't plugging Operto. I actually mean what I say. If the thing didn't work, I would definitely tell you guys the ways it didn't work. But I can't stress enough. We went through an integration with another company, and it was a much different experience. So I'm appreciative for everything you guys have done, and it's really not what you guys do, it's what the software does, right? So
100%. Fair enough. We do have a bunch of questions. Really quick one, and then I actually have one for you. Can you
Cool.
share what PMS you're using?
We're using Solanas.
Okay. All right. Thank
We're
you.
not using Guesty anymore, or Maestro.
Okay.
Those
Fair
were
enough.
our providers.
So I know we do have more questions. Just before we go there, like, you've kind of dialed in the operational side. I'm more curious to know, like, where you see future growth for Mountain Creek Resort, any potential for your business. Like, what are you assessing? Like, you're pretty tech adoptive in general. What's kind of next?
Yeah, so one of our hardest capital spends with this project was on the locks. So we entered this whole thing saying we want these locks with keypads. Everything else at our business is run on dual frequency RFID. So that's how you access any of our ski lifts, our bike park, our water park, our zip line, you name it. Our technology uses dual frequency RFID, some NFC. Basically, our whole business runs off an iPhone. So the locks were kind of consider that a peripheral, kind of like a receipt printer in food and beverage, or anything else that could break. We tend to think iPhones or phones in general are pretty solid, but because in our own technology company, we're currently looking into retina scanning for accessing our lifts. So as great as phones are in the cold at a ski resort, they could stop functioning. RFID is great, but you need to carry around a card all the time. The one thing that every human has, that can be very easily read is their face. So we tend to think that's the way the world is going to be going very soon. I know there's a lot of companies already employing that. Madison Square Garden, which is the world's most famous arena, I think they call it, right? Where the New York Rangers play. I'm a Devils fan, but
any Bostonian might challenge you.
yeah, that could happen too. But they've taken that so far. MSG is a huge entertainment company, and naturally a company that big gets into lawsuits from time to time. And they've taken it as far as anyone that's ever filed a lawsuit against them, if they enter the MSG arena, they do a scan of the whole arena with everyone in it, and they will kick you out of the arena if you've ever sued the MSG companies. So you can Google that. It's in a bunch of articles, but that might be using technology to the extreme. I don't know if that's what we want in the hospitality world, but I guess they might be a little bit more bitter than some other people. But yeah, I think that's where we're moving. It could be things other than retina scanning. I don't know. That's just the one that keeps popping up for us. but who knows?
Okay, great. Someone did ask, wondering if you could share a little bit more why you aren't using Guesty anymore.
Yeah, I mean, our company believes in full transparency, so I guess I'll stick with that on here. We signed an agreement with Guesty to use their software. They had made many promises that things were in development, which I should have known right at that moment, since we run a tech company as well, that doesn't always have a solid timeline. But basically, the reality is their salesperson was just trying to get a sale. Their actual team that does things couldn't do most of the things the salesperson said the software could do. And that led us down a road of not using the software. We were very set on sticking to the process map we developed in that Kaizen exercise. And there were some pretty big roadblocks that popped up.
Awesome. Sean McGrediger just asked what staff scheduling software you used. So Aperto Teams is what Evan and the crew are using. Thanks for your question, Sean. Another one here for you, Evan. Someone is needing to lean their staff. What are the roles in your business that are mission critical? Do you have any recommendations of where you would trim first and why?
Ooh, but that's
It's a big question.
a loaded question. Like I'm sure like most of the people on this call, we're a team first organization. Luckily, or maybe not so luckily, the labor markets have led us to a place where it's not like we have a surplus of people to work. So that helps force some decisions. But in general, as we're making those decisions, we try and keep the cream of the crop in anything guest facing and then remove behind the scenes. But really, I mean, in this exercise, although we saved a bunch of labor dollars, we were able to reposition our highest performers. We're able to eliminate some of our lower performers, which we wanted to do anyway. And really, we're just able to add some more job variety to what they do. So yes, there were savings. Yes, there were cuts. But in our circumstance, I know they were all for the better. So I guess my answer, if I was to sum that up, is start with your best performers, then work from there. Start with your best attitudes. Skill can always be taught, right? So that's just the approach we take at Mountain Creek, but I'm sure there's other approaches out there that work as well.
Yeah, for sure. Great question coming in from Janet. Have you ever encountered any challenges using Aperto Teams? Do you mind actually sharing some of the challenges and how you might have overcome them?
Yeah, really when we first started using Operto Teams, as I call the housekeeping module, I can't get that out of my head. It's the housekeeping module.
No stress.
So the only problem we had was we had some sneaky housekeepers who were trying to reuse pictures, basically. So clean one room, then go back and take pictures of it again. But we were able to figure that one out pretty fast because, like I had mentioned, we're a condo hotel, so each unit we rent is actually unique. The furniture changes, the paint color changes. So we were able to sniff that one out pretty fast. The only other thing was we were planning on relying on people using their own technology, like their own phones or tablets. In the other parts of our business, that seems to work. People like being on their own phones, but in our lodging division, we got some pushback from that. And there's some legal implications there too. So if you're planning on saving a little bit on the technology side, there might be a little bit more of an investment than what you anticipated, but our whole business runs off iPhones. So we had iPhones sitting, in our ski rental shop and in other places we were able to move over.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, one last quick question from Nadia, just about your TV. Do you offer cable channels or just internet and Wi-Fi? Kind of what's your go-to?
We have a pretty unique setup at the resort. So we have an LLC that our parent company owns that provides all of the TV, internet, and phone to the units that are within our rental program. So I guess the answer to that would be yes, yes, and yes. Voice over IP phones. We've started removing the phones in most units, and we're replacing it with kind of like a fake phone that says who uses phones anymore. You could contact us through the messaging component. So we've started doing that. We actually don't have phones at our resort anymore. So not just within lodging, but at our ski resort, if you want customer service and you call us, it's a pre-recorded message that says to visit our online chat or to email us. We have a robot that answers hundreds of thousands of questions. I know that's probably a whole nother debate we could talk about, but we've seen amazing success with that. People answering phones is super inefficient.
Yeah.
Leave a message, call back, leave a message, call back. But yes, we do provide the internet, TV, and phones.
Brilliant. Last question here. Our other session has started, so I'm going to end this one and you guys are going to jump in, join Duncan and Beth from your key. Jessica, you just asked, can Operto unlock locks off of the guest experience app? So depending on the locks, you have a Bluetooth enabled key, or you'll actually get the access code. So it shows up in the guest portal, guest arrives, depending on the different lock that you use. So if you have any more questions, feel free, book a demo. Link is linked there for you. And we will see you over in the Art of Turnover. Evan, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your time. You are so wonderful. Good luck with the rest of the day. Good luck with the end of May recap. And we'll chat to you soon. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks, everyone.